Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Purr Play Sip Podcast. We're here today with Robert to ask about some of the most common questions we get in this time of year, which is the start of kitten season and what you should do when you see kittens outside. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our first question, and that is, what do you do if you find kittens outside?
So a lot of people's first instinct is to immediately bring them inside, which is not necessarily what you want to do. Depending on their age, taking them away from mama significantly reduces their likelihood of survival. So their best chance is always going to be with mom. So what you're going to want to do if you find kittens, especially if they're not big enough to be moving around on their own yet, is leave them where you find them. Watch the area, maybe put some wet food there, see if mom comes back. Chances are she's very nearby and you just don't see her because she's learned that humans are scary, but kittens haven't learned that yet. Now, if they're like these kittens who are big and moving around, they've already been weaned from mom. Taking them inside should not be an issue because they'll be able to eat on their own without mom. But you still want to find mom because obviously we don't want mom to continue having babies.
And what's one way to tell what age the kittens that you find are?
All right. So kittens under 2 weeks old won't have their eyes open. Their ears will be really folded down. They won't really be moving a lot. Once they get to be about 3 or 4 weeks old, they start hobbling around like little drunk kitties. And then once they get to be like 4 or 5 weeks old is when they start to try to eat real food, and that's when they start playing and getting real rowdy. Normally they stop feeding on mom about 4 or 5 weeks. So once they're that old, they can be separated from mom to be fed, but it's still best for mom to be around to teach them how to be a cat.
Yeah. And what's some of the needs that they need before mom or before they are old enough to not be around mother? That is some of the things that you might have to step in as a foster if there is no mother around or if there's an evidence that the mother may not be coming back.
So if they're still weaning on mom, I don't know if that's the right word. If they're still feeding with mom and you have to take over that, of course, you want to get kitten meal replacement. You don't want to use cow's milk or oat milk or anything like that. In fact, most cats are lactose intolerant, so that actually is going to be bad for them. But they make KMR, which is like, kitty formula. And it'll put on there how often you're supposed to feed them. It's like 2 or 3, every 2 or 3 hours. You do have to stimulate them. Ask your local shelter what that means. It's kind of gross to talk about. But basically, you have to make sure that things are going in and things are coming out. And normally mom handles all that. But if mom's not around, then you'll have to do that. One of the big things, too, that people talk about when they find kittens is you want to make sure they're warm, they're fed, and they're clean in that order. So everybody immediately thinks you want them to be clean. That actually is the least of your worries. You want to make sure they're warm first because kittens can't regulate their own body temperature. That's why a lot of times you'll find them in piles on top of each other because they're trying to keep each other warm. So you want to make sure they're warm and then that they're fed and then if they're clean. Because actually, if you bathe them, that affects the warmth, and sometimes you don't want to mess with that. So, if they're dirty, yes, it sucks for you, but it's no big deal, really.
And then, what's one way that you can make sure that there isn't a mama? Are there ways to, put out testers to see if a mom would come around? And how many days should you watch a litter of kittens before you can assume that there may not be a mother?
Most of the times the advice is going to be 24 hours. So a lot of people will put like a ring of flour around the kittens. That way when they come back, you can see if it's been disturbed and that mom has been there. Like I said before, you can put some wet food. If they're small kittens, they're not going to eat it. So if you come back and the food's gone, mom's probably around. Now, if you do those things and nothing's disturbed and the babies are still there, you are going to want to intervene because, somebody's got to feed the babies. You'll want, if you're welcome to try to bottle feed them yourself, there are lots of shelters all over the country, not just the Kentucky Humane Society, that can provide you resources or education on what you can do to take care of them. A lot of them have foster programs themselves, so if you can get the kittens to them, they can get them into foster care so someone can care for them. It's not always as simple as just calling someone and they're going to take care of it. Sometimes it takes some effort on your part, but it's worth it so that all the little kitties make it.
Yeah. And then What is one thing you should do with a mother if you do find the mother does come back to the litter of kittens? What's one thing that you can do for the mother and also for the kittens to find homes, or should you leave mother outside?
So to control the problem, you don't want to just leave mom, because mom will just end up getting pregnant again, and then you have more kittens, and then the more kittens mama has, that's worse for her health, and of course then you have to find all these homes for more kittens. So what you're going to want to try to do is what we call TrapNeuter Return. If sometimes mom is not going to be good in a home after if cats don't get introduced to people within like the first 6 months of their life, they just learn to naturally be afraid of them, and they're not going to thrive in a home. So sometimes it's best that they stay outside, but you do still want to make sure they get spayed or neutered. Oh, spayed if they're female, of course, because that way they can't have more kitties, and that the problem will not continue to be a problem. So I say trap, neuter, release. That is, we have here in Louisville, Alley Cat Advocates provides that service. So you contact them, they'll give you a trap, and they'll give you a place to take them to get them spayed or neutered, and then you'll come back and pick them up and take the cat back to where you found them. Now, that's a local one. There are plenty of organizations all over the United States that do that. Some of them are more involved than others. Some may be willing to come get the cats for you. Some will expect you to have to go through the trouble, which, like I said, sometimes it takes effort on your part. Not that they're just going to come find this cat and take care of it. If you want to make sure that they're going to have a good outcome, sometimes it takes some effort on your part. What are you doing?
On average, about how many kittens can a mama cat have, and how many times a year can she have litters of kittens?
So most moms will have at least 3 or 4 kittens. I've heard stories of them having up to 8 or 9, depending on their size. So that's, one mama having even just 3 or 4 kittens. They can have up to 4 litters a season, depending on the temperature in your area. If you have longer summers, they could have up to 5 or 6 litters. So, you talk 5 times 4, that's 20 kittens by just one cat in a season. And then if you don't get them all spayed and neutered, that means all those females will have 20 cats every season. Then before you know it, you're into astronomically high numbers. So that's why you do want to make sure you get them spayed, neutered. Like I say, again, there are plenty of organizations that provide low-cost services for that to help control the population, because we don't want to have to put cats down for being in crowded shelters.
Now, you did mention that when you find kittens that they can't have cow milk and they can't have KMR, or that they do drink KMR. Mm-hmm. But what are some of those other procedures that you will run into when you do take in kittens? Is there certain care that you need to give them that you may not know right off the bat? Right.
So feeding them is, of course, important. Keeping them warm is important. But if you are going to bottle feed them, there's this lady, her name is the Kitten Lady. What's her last name is Shaw, I think. But she's all over Facebook and social media. She provides lots of videos on taking care of small kittens. You basically want to imitate how they would feed from mama. So that's not on their back. That's them, well, if one of them would come over here, I'd show you. But basically, they're on all 4 of their feet, and they're just suckling on the bottle with their head up. Sometimes you'll have to hold their head up, especially when they're really young, because they're so tiny. But you basically hold them. Let's pretend like my mic is the bottle. You're going to hold them kind of like this, and then they'll start to, you want to take some? There it is. Now, some kittens don't like to suckle from a bottle, and you might have to syringe feed them, which I actually find to be easier. They don't like it as much, but it's easier to get it. It's basically like giving them medication. You put some KMR in the syringe, and then you just squirt it in their mouth so they'll eat it. And like I said, those containers tell you how much you should be giving them so that you don't over or underfeed them.
And what's one reason why you wouldn't want to just monitor kittens outdoors? What are some of the illnesses that they can run into by being outdoors?
Sure. So, of course, the warmth and the feeding is the biggest reason you don't want to leave them alone, because, they're tiny. They need constant attention. But they can, of course, get rabies. They can get ringworm. They can get some intestinal parasites like coccidia or giardia. And, all those things. Yes, they'll survive those things if they get them and then they're seen by a vet. But if they just get them and there's no treatment, then they could possibly make it where they don't survive. And we obviously don't want that. Of course, you also talk about cats are unique in the animal kingdom in that they're both prey and predator. So yes, we know cats like to hunt, but cats are also hunted. So you talk about large birds of prey, coyotes, raccoons. They might see kittens and think, well, that's my next meal. And we don't want them to think that because you don't want to eat this. This is too cute.
And are there some areas of your home that you should check for kittens? I know I've heard stories of cats getting into the cars and also under sheds. Is there any other places that you should check for kittens if you suspect that there may be a litter around?
Yeah, so they're obviously looking for a safe, quiet place. So sometimes if you have a crawl space, they might end up under there. I've also heard about cats being found in car engines during the winter because it's warm. So it's encouraged that you tap your hood first so they'll come out. People have found cats in their walls. They found them in their attic. Basically, mom's trying to find the most secure location she can find because she is going to have to leave the kittens to go hunt for herself. And she wants to make sure they're going to be okay until she comes back. Normally, it's just going to be a slight covering like a bush or maybe a deck or someplace like that. It won't be super enclosed usually because she wants to be able to access it easily. But just up underneath things that you might find any sort of stray animal. You might find kittens.
And also, what are some preemptive measures you can take if you do see a pregnant mother outside? Are there ways to be able to make her a nest in order for her to use? Is that probably best, or is it best to maybe have her trapped and taken to a shelter? Or is there any options you can do if you do see a pregnant mom outside and she doesn't easily come to you?
So, a lot of shelters will provide you with a trap. And normally what you'll do then is, on one end, it has a place to put the food. On the other end, once you hit this plate on the other side, the gate comes down and mom is trapped. So normally to trap a kitten or a cat, you'll use really smelly food that normally lures them because they can smell it from quite a distance, and they're obviously hungry. If mom's already had the kittens, if you can get to them, a lot of times you can use them as bait to get mama so she can get spayed. But you can make your own makeshift home nests for mom. Actually, when I have a pregnant mom at home, I make it out of like a cardboard box, put soft blankets in it. You can get like self-heating heating pads, not ones that you are on all the time, but they make these ones that when you step on them, they activate. And that way, mama is warm, babies are warm once they're born. And also, you want to put a little cover over so it looks kind of silly in your house because you just have this cardboard thing over the top. But to mom, that means it's protected.
All right. And is there anything else that you would like to tell people for this upcoming kitten season, if they see kittens, what they should do, and just any additional information that you may have?
No, it's really just, my motto is anything for the kitties. So sometimes it's going to take a lot of effort on your part. Sometimes it won't take a lot of effort at all, depending on the organization you try to work with. Even if you have to keep them for a few days until the shelter has space, kittens don't take up a lot of space at all. Normally you can keep them in a bathroom, or some people keep them small kittens in a drawer because they don't move around a lot, so it's not like you have to worry about them getting into things. So normally most shelters will be able to take them in, but it might be a few days. So if you can just make sure they're fed for a few days, then they can get onto a more experienced foster caregiver that can give them all the care that they need.
All righty.
All right. Thank you for joining us. That's our podcast on if you find a kitten, please do what you can to help them. We want to make sure they all have happy endings, and we hope you make it a perfect day.